There we go. Hi, everyone. I'm gonna wait for you to come in. I'm gonna try to do a couple this week because I owe you one from last week. Hi. If you're in the States, we just had a holiday. Hi, everyone. The 4th of July. And I just got back from Texas. I went and visited my family. Hello from the farm. I actually didn't get to go to my family farm this time. Oh, tell your kids. Who's the kids? Do I know you? Tell your kids I said hi. Or you can tell me their names. Hi from Idaho. Yeah, my family's up in Lubbock, Texas. Hi from Colorado. They live out on a lake there. And it's so perfect because my older sister's out there. My brother and his wife are out there. Hi from Japan. And then my parents are out there, so I went and stayed with them. Canada. Oh, okay. Well, I'd love to meet you all someday. I got to meet a couple of you this week. Virginia Beach. I actually haven't been there. Minnesota. Alaska. So some from America. I don't know if you celebrate the 4th of July. Cabo in Australia. Kansas. I love it. Yeah, I grew up in Texas. So I live in San Diego now. But I originally grew up in Texas. We grew up on a farm when I was young. And then we moved to the city, which was still a tiny, tiny Texas town. And then we moved to a bigger city. Is the location you live your medicine? Absolutely. Michigan. My sister's boyfriend is from Michigan. All right, I think we got enough in. So I'm still going through all of the questions. There are so many, and then I'm going to open it up again to more questions, but we're going to kind of just try to notch away at the ones that we already have. Chino, you're not too far from me. Okay, but before we start, I got him again. But I'm not going to read all of it, but if you have his book, there is a little passage called Close, and that's where I'm going to get this little passage because I feel like it's so powerful, and while I'm waiting for you all to come in, I'm going to read it. I love it so much. The whole passage is well worth the read, but this is the very end of it. So it says, human beings do not find their essence through fulfillment or eventual arrival, but by staying close to the way they like to travel, the way they hold the conversation between the ground on which they stand and the horizon to which they go. We are in effect always close to the ultimate secret, that we are more real in our simple wish to find a way than any destination we could reach. The step between not understanding that and understanding that is as close as we get to happiness. And a lot of the questions that I was looking at kind of have a similar theme for today. And that was with regards to using your life as your medicine in different stages of life, with a lot of different things going on, with environmental factors that are out of your control. And just to always recap, in this little bubble, the way we speak about your life as your medicine is your life is always your medicine. Every single kind of day is medicine. And how you interact and have the conversation, as David White says there in that passage, how you have the conversation with your life alters how you interpret it physiologically. And how you interpret it physiologically alters what is in circulation within your blood. And so I usually just call that your chemistry. So you can't feel something that doesn't have the corresponding chemistry. And so when we talk about your life as medicine, we talk about the practical, which is what I cover in those master classes, which a lot of you have already done. And that helps you start getting rid of the variables, right? Because when it comes to a human body, there's so many different variables that can cause the same symptom. And if you've done any type of wellness education, medical education, anything like that, you understand how many different things can contribute to the same presentation. And so that's why we try to simplify it down into diagnosing and lots of different criteria to kind of separate to treat. But when you're viewing the body as the body should be viewed, which is the body is always right, even in its presentation of symptoms, it is right. So that doesn't mean we don't want to do anything or that we feel good in its rightness, right? It means that it is the effect to the cause, and the cause is your life. The cause is how you have the conversation with your life and how you interpret it and how you experience it and how you respond and react to it. And so you have those practical elements like we cover in the master classes, right? You have your nutrition, your hydration, your movement, all of those different components because they do influence human physiology. So I talk in those master classes, if you've taken them, if we were to cut your beautiful heads off and have no personality, have no family history, have nothing, then you would get a pure physiological outcome. So alcohol would do what alcohol does. A grape would do what a grape does, right? But it's when you put your beautiful head back on your magnificent bodies that you get more of the, it's not complicated, but it's more complex in its interpretation and dancing with the inputs of life. And so you want to remove variables because when you get into what I think is true root cause medicine, which is the truth and the totality of an entire life taken into consideration, not just nutrition, not just gut health, not just movement, it's all of it. So it's everything from your breath to your emotions, to your thoughts, to your experiences, to your environment. So all of it has to be taken into consideration. And there are no two individuals that are the same. And so there are these foundational things, right, which is what I cover in those master classes, right? We've got to stay on task today because I want to make this worth your time. But you handle those things to remove variables because then when you remove variables, you're not chasing down, the latest herb or the latest diet. And one of the questions that I really liked is going to touch on exactly this. So the question was the difference between trying and effort and how does that change in a life when you're using your life as medicine. And so there's a huge difference between effort and struggle. And so that's where I would kind of change the wording a little bit. So trying is when, try can be a word that's used in a lot of different ways. And so to really kind of split hairs here, I would say we're going to use effort and struggle because try could be used as both effort and struggle, right? So what you're wanting is you're wanting to input truthful action so that the outcome is not based off of manipulation. So it would be, we can use alcohol, we can use substances, but you can even use a very restricted diet and see how that is manipulative in nature, how the body wouldn't truly digest anything versus I'm going to give it the most simple thing to digest to make it seem like I'm digesting. So how I view it is the effort is you're going to have to understand digestion. You're going to have to understand your human physiology. You're going to have to understand your mood. You're going to have to understand your psychology. You're going to have to start looking into your belief systems. That's effort. It takes effort to turn the mirror around on yourself and not be like, am I eating the most perfect diet? But am I even supposed to be eating? And to understand that difference will get you a drastically different outcome when it comes to how you feel in your physical body. And so what you're wanting to do is you're wanting to exert effort. Effort is a very beautiful thing. We talk about how stress is very beneficial in that energy masterclass. Bodies want to be stressed, right? There's a difference in stress, right? Like we covered in that class too. There's different types of stress, but physiological stress is a very, very beneficial thing for your immune system, for your entire body. And so we want a life where you exert effort. Effort is a very beautiful thing. Struggle, on the other hand, starts chipping away at your self-concept, your psychology, and even that emotional well-being. And so when it comes to a struggle is always chasing manipulation-based strategies to get a physiological outcome that can only be reached through a true change. And so that's, again, like that example that we use, even with alcohol. So somebody who has social anxiety and they use alcohol to suppress that, or to enhance or to minimize different, chemistry bundles within their body, that doesn't mean they changed that social anxiety, right? And so you can see this in a lot of different manifestations within the body of, I'm eating a restricted diet, like only fruit or only vegetables or only, the easiest things to digest, saying that my gut is the root cause, when I'm not in a psychological and emotional state to ever consume food. And to know the difference between those two things, and then to, break the rules, like we say, intelligently, is where your freedom comes. Because you're never going to have a life that doesn't have challenges. You're never going to have a life that doesn't push you psychologically or emotionally. And so the goal is not to never be challenged. The goal is to anticipate the challenges and know how to adapt, how to change, how to make decisions within whatever life throws at you. And then make decisions based off of that, to where you're not creating more symptomology, more of the problem, if you will, while you're trying to fix it, right? So you're going to change instead of fix. You're going to exert effort instead of just this manipulation-based trying, which I call struggle. Because there's a huge difference between struggle and effort. Effort changes physiology in a beautiful, significant, powerful way. Struggle, again, like I said, I see it eroding the human, right? Struggle looks like the person that's tried every single diet. They've gone on different supplement, really rigid protocols, if you will. They have tried everything. They eat perfectly. They have the perfect routine. They have the perfect home environment. They have everything that you could imagine, and their symptoms are not changing. Or if they forget supplements one day, all of their symptoms come back. Or if you put them in a different location, or a house that doesn't have all the light controlled for, or the air, or if it hasn't been completely cleared of any mold spores, or they have symptoms. So that's the picture of somebody who's really in the struggle. It really starts chipping away at psychology, because you start thinking in the way of, I'm doing everything right, and if I'm doing everything right and I'm still not seeing changes, then my body must be what is wrong. And that's what we want to start getting away from. That's the freedom that we're going after, because if you're constantly needing something made by man, you're not free, because a human body, its natural state is wellness. And you can prove that to yourself just by watching a cut heal. The natural state is moving towards wellness, healing. That's all that it knows. So if it's doing something, you know that it's in the direction of healing. But that you have to start understanding where you're continuing things, but you're changing your diet. And so your symptoms are going to remain, because it wasn't the diet that needed to change, right? And you would have to get more specific based on the person, of course. But that's kind of a very simple way, because a lot of people have done a lot for gut health. Everyone's, on these very, very strict diets, and they know everything that you could possibly know about nutrition. And we're still seeing people that can't even digest the super strict, rigid, extreme, organic, every word you can imagine type diet. And that's the problem. Is not the food. The problem is in life somewhere where it's affecting human psychology, or even emotions, and how that feeds into physiology. So I'm going to kind of pause for a little bit, because we hit the ground running. I'm going to catch up a little bit. Okay. But this is a very good question, and I'm going to go into it a little bit more, just so those of you that have taken those classes can understand, how to implement that better as well. Hi. Somebody super special just showed up in the room. I know some of you know him. All right. Okay, does that make sense so far? And I've got a lot of feedback on the reading the comments. We're not going to get too distracted in the comments today. The name of the book I read is the same from last week. It's David White's Essentials. And it was a passage in the back. It's a little paragraph that I chose. Okay, so when you take the nutrition masterclass, the question here is emotional eating with regards to the rules. So when you go into the rules, when you're in the world of what we would call, or what has been called, emotional eating, you're in that second kind of question that you need to ask, right? And so that is where you're going to kind of change you based off of the answer to that question, right? So only you will know what emotion you are experiencing, and then the medicine that needs to be implemented in that moment, right? Because the rules will get you to where, oh, I moved my desk, sorry. The rules will get you to where you ask those questions. And on question number 2, right, you're going to ask the emotional questions, and based off of what emotion you're experiencing, because when we just call it emotional eating, what does that even mean? Like, think about the language there. Language is very important when you're really trying to understand things. So when we call something emotional eating, humans are emotional all the time. So that doesn't even really make any sense. But how it's being used here is you're using food as an antidote or a soothing mechanism to soothe whatever uncomfortable emotion you're experiencing. So I would pull that apart. And again, I know you're trying to convey something with words, but all of life has emotions. So it's when you're trying to anesthetize or distract away from the truth of what you're experiencing there, that it becomes something that's not going to facilitate well-being, right? And so that's what we talk about in those rules. So you're in on that second rule of nutrition, and then the actual step that you need to take is dependent on that emotion. Are you angry? Why are you angry? Are you sad? Why are you sad? Are you heartbroken? Are you grieving? Do you feel shame? Are you fearful? And remember, I think it was a couple of Q&As ago where we talked about even using those words like anxious and fearful. I would go a step further and say, give it words that aren't those two words, because we use fear for everything. We use anxiety for everything. And I have yet to meet anybody where those words were accurate or even depicted the truth of what was being experienced by that person. Because some of the things that show up at the table, like that video that I said, what's not being said at the table matters more than what's being served at the table. So what I mean by that is when two people are sitting at the table and they're not on the same page, they don't feel good together, there's some sort of emotional disturbance between the two, and it's not being handled or resolved, and you're just going to eat a meal over that, that's going to create a physiological outcome that will create symptoms, right? Healing expressions, because it should. And so just like we talked about in that nutrition masterclass, you would actually have to go into the emotions and handle what was being asked in that moment. And that's going to be the medicine for that moment, where food in that moment, even if it was lunchtime or dinner time or you hadn't eaten in a day, wouldn't be the appropriate action for that. And so that's how you have to start thinking in those moments and it requires a deep understanding of yourself, a deep ability to pay attention to you. And in a world where we're kind of outsourcing so much of our personal power to everything outside of us, or even how we feel based off of how we feel others at the table feel about us, it's going to really it forces you to be true. And that's why I love this medicine, because it forces you to put a mirror up and say, no, what's going on in you? If it has nothing to do with the person sitting across from you, how are you? Because you can't change them, and the only one that's going to digest your food is you. And so that's why it's so important. So those emotions are so valuable, because they're going to be, do you feel good? Do you not, right? And then go into further questions with curiosity, right? Remember, it's always curiosity, not condemnation, not you're wrong, why do you feel that way? You're right. You're right for feeling this way. Why? Does it have anything to do with an actual legitimate truth happening in your environment, or are you creating and concocting something in your head, right? And when I say in your head, it's not to minimize that. I would say majority of what I see once we clear out everything that we cover in those master classes ends up being in the heart and the head, right? And so I think I even did a video not too long ago where it says, you know, somebody saying it's just in your head is just as serious as somebody saying it's just in your kidneys. It's a very, very serious thing. And what I see a lot is what's going on in people's minds and hearts is causing more damage than the foods that they're choosing or not choosing. And that's saying a lot. Okay. So I'm watching some of these come in. There's some good questions. Okay, so we'll break a little bit right here. So when you're asking about what classes for what symptoms, we can generalize it, but do know that the rules are always the rules. And so even when you're not having symptoms, you still need to be following the rules of nutrition. Even when you're not having symptoms, you still need to be paying attention to light, because those effects are still going to be created within your physiology. So think of it again. I love to use sunlight as an example. Even if you're not having symptoms, sunlight is going to interact with your skin and create physiological changes, right? You're also going to get chemical changes within the blood as well. So with symptoms or without symptoms, that is still going to happen. So that's where you always want to go into your life as your medicine and utilizing those rules, even when you're not having healing expressions or what we call symptoms, right? So then when you're saying, what class should I take if you're experiencing XYZ symptom, like we can get kind of specific just because of how much I've done this, but you still want to make sure that all areas of your life are being investigated. Just like I said, like we can remove variables through these master classes, but these master classes are not take this, treat this. There's no version of that that is appropriate. And so I want to make sure it's clear that these classes aren't do this for this. It's these things happen even if you don't use them, so use them to your advantage. So when it comes to anything hormonal, what I see most often is people not utilizing light to their advantage. So they're getting a lot of hormonal changes that are appropriate from the light environment that they are exposed to, just like, you know, insulin changes with blue light. Lots of different things. Cravings change, lots of different things. And that happens even if you don't know about it. It happens even if you do. And so it's that level of alteration, and it's less how we use like supplements. Like I have gas and bloating, take this supplement. That's not how this works. It's whole life, whole body, every single day. This works even when you're not trying to heal. It works when you are trying to heal. The rules are always the rules. And so that's kind of what we're dealing with when we're talking about these master classes. So it's not take this class for heart palpitations or take this class for this. It's all of these things touch everything from hormones to skin to intestinal cells to hair to nails to mood to neurotransmitters to myelin sheath, like all of it. You can't separate any part of it, but you can see trends, right? Just like you could say, you know, what class would increase skin pigmentation? I'd probably go with light, but you also need to make sure, you know, you're eating and nourished and all of those different things. So we've kind of got to step away from this thinking of, I take this for this, I take this herb to do this. That's in that realm of, again, manipulation-based therapeutics. It's not wrong. It's just we want to live a life where the effect of that life is a physiological expression that doesn't need manipulation. So you're doing the things, you're living, let's just take nutrition. You're doing what's required to digest food so that you don't have to have herbs for gas, bloating, and indigestion, or herbs to prevent diarrhea, or herbs to prevent constipation. You're living a life where the physiology produces that outcome. That's very, very different than I'm going to live however I want. I'm going to eat super strict and call it healthy. And I'm going to take herbs to manipulate my body into the outcome that I desire. Well, the cause is still happening and the body still has all of that continuing in different ways in the physiology. And so you really have to know what you're doing when you're working with the body, because you can manipulate a body. It's not impressive anymore. You can manipulate a body with everything. So it's not, can we manipulate your symptom away? Of course you can. Of course you can. Can you, but will that continue to remove all of the other side effects of what's going on because of that input as well, or because of that physiological state? So that's how you have to start seeing it. It's not just, okay, I'm going to continue breaking all these rules and have, gas, bloating, indigestion, and constipation, and I'm just going to take herbs and say your life is your medicine. No, you're breaking the rules and you're manipulating your body out of the effects of the cause. And so that's how you have to start thinking. So when I say, hormone change quickest with light, it's still not go and treat, this one condition with this. You're a whole person. You should not view yourself as your diagnosis, because it's so far from the truth. It's so far from the truth. And to even go look at diagnosing and see that you could have one word different and be in a completely different category. A lot of you have experienced that. I've seen a lot of messages of a misdiagnosed something, and for 3 weeks you thought you had lymphoma, and it turned out to be, something less severe, right? And you were so mad because they misdiagnosed you, and you lived in a state of fear and panic until you were diagnosed appropriately. So that's literally the world that you're in. It's just a bunch of words. So it's really look at your life and see why your body is right, and then make the changes to get the effects that you desire. So I know the language is a little different, but we've got to use language differently so that we can think differently, so that we can ask better questions. And then when we get true answers to those better questions, you can take massive action and you get huge results. And that's where we kind of go back to, effort versus struggle. Is it a lot of effort to learn this, to change how you think about medicine, to change how you think about your body? It is the most effort you will ever have to exert. Why? Because the whole world is going against it. That's going to be the most effort, but it's worthwhile, and the return on that investment is going to take care of itself. You're going to see the changes to where you don't even question it, versus the struggle of always thinking you have to learn something new to be okay. You always have to know about everything coming out of the news to be prepared, to prevent the latest, the worst, it requires so much trying and so much just fear, like intellectual accumulation driven fear, or fear driven intellectual accumulation. And it's like the perfect bubble to always be like, you always need something. You always need to be aware and on guard, and that by itself changes the nervous system, changes how you digest food when you get into that, changes how it's the perfect storm to keep everybody frantically consuming forever, instead of having wise, difficult effort and being free in your life. Because again, if you're here, there might be some level of healing you're still wanting to do, or you work with people, and freedom should be the goal of medicine. I don't know how we got so far away, because even with this patient-practitioner relationship, you start seeing the danger in it, right? So there's something that can be said from gaining wisdom, but wisdom must be implemented. It can't just be gathered. If it's just gathered, it's, intellectual accumulation. There's no wisdom in that. Wisdom is the application, and then the, investment into a life. It should change your life if there's wisdom held in it. It should change your life if there's a truth held in it, if you are actually doing it. And so that's That's this huge thing of, does it require effort? Absolutely. A worthwhile life is going to require effort. It requires effort to maintain a home. It takes effort to maintain a relationship. It takes effort to, take care of children, puppies, kitties. There's effort required. But there's a difference, again, between effort and struggle. Effort is worthwhile. It's beautiful. It changes you and it strengthens you. Struggle just wears you down and erodes and corrodes and weakens you. And you've got to know the difference. Is what you're learning empowering you truly? Or is it Trojan horsing in under education and empowerment, but it's chipping away at your belief in anything, right? And if you go listen to my videos on placebo, you'll see how that's more dangerous than even misinformation on food, right? It's very dangerous to have a belief system that has no integrity. So you want a life that requires effort. You don't want a life that doesn't push you at all. Just like, again, we talked about that in that energy masterclass. You want physiological stress. The body needs it. It thrives on it, right? That's very different than, the stress that the world is under. But that's because we're living in this very interesting dependency on an industry, right? And so this is different than what is being talked about within relationships on dependency. That's a whole different conversation. But this, my health is in an industry's hands or behind the walls of the clinic, that's impossible. And if you're always needing to go and have contact with that, that's not wellness, right? Even if your practitioner's kind. And so this is where we've got to get to, the truth of these things on, are we just chasing down a bunch of fixes, right? Are we manipulating our bodies out of the truth of our lives instead of turning around, having the grit, having the strength to look at our lives and be like, if I'm experiencing a problem in my body, I have to change me. I have to change me. It's not I have to find the next herb or I have to find the next supplement or I need to make a more restricted diet part of my life. It's I've got to look at the totality of everything. And I have to understand that you live in a world that is very physical, but also metaphysical in nature. So handle the stuff. If you're like, we have to use it all the time. If you're drinking, 16 shots of whiskey every day, I would eliminate that variable if you're having a lot of symptoms, right? Physical things have physical outputs. So a physical input's going to have a physical output. You're going to have, skin exposed to light is going to have an output. And it's very, dependent on the individual that is experiencing that input. So that's where you've got to understand the truth about how a body actually works, right? And so when I talk about the master classes and the rules, I see a lot of you asking about that. I'm just referring to, it's not something I created. It has nothing to do with, I see it a lot here, the German New Medicine. It has nothing to do with any of that. If it's super complicated, it's so far from the truth, right? But just like you'll see in allopathic medicine, all of these different types of medicine, there are truths held within them because that's just the nature of it. So there are truths held within allopathic medicine with regards to how human physiology works, input, output, stuff like that. But that doesn't mean that the totality of it is true. And so you have to really go into true versus right and understand all of that, which is not, this is not the place for that. But with that being said, when I'm talking about the rules, I'm just talking about how a human body functions in this very physical world with the additional, what we call the poetry of living, which is that metaphysical interfacing and interaction with all of the things that you can't see, right? Because it's all of it. It's the tangible and the intangible. It's the poetry and the physical. It's the practical and the poetic, right? It's all of it because that's how dynamic and how brilliant and magnificent a human body is. So when you're trying to change how a body feels, you really have to look at all of it. And that's, again, what we're talking about here. The rules are just eliminating the variables that are just guaranteed. Like if you put a human body out in sun, you will have pigmentation changes, right? So it's as simple as that. It's nothing It's just simplifying all of this information down to, hey, this is how it works. It's going to work like this on a good day. It's going to work like this on a bad day. And you need to know how to make decisions based off of these rules. And so that's what I cover in those classes for those people asking that. Yeah, if it's super complicated, I would always back up. And, you know, even there's that Einstein quote. If somebody understands something well enough, they can explain it to a child. And, you know, even hanging out with my nieces and nephews this past week, I love how they want it to make sense. And when did we lose that? When did we say, dazzle me with complicated, extravagant explanations that really prove that you don't even know what you're talking about? And if you do know what you're talking about, you could explain it to a child and it would make sense and it would work, right? I oversay this, and I know if you've worked with me, I always say, make it make sense. Make it make sense. If it doesn't make sense, go until it does. And it will lead you to truth, always. And I always tell everyone, think with the simplicity and the purity and, you know, the determination of a childlike mind, of that doesn't make sense. Why do you want me to do that? And then, you know, they ask questions on questions on questions. Then when it checks out, they're like, okay. And if not, they have more questions. And so that's how I would say within the medical industry, especially when it's dealing with your body, your health, your life, you better have questions and it better make sense to you, right? Make it make sense. Because if you can make it make sense, then that means you understand. If you can't make it make sense, then something's missing. Or maybe I should get information from somebody else, right? So it doesn't matter how beautiful it sounds. It doesn't matter how sexy and compelling and complicated it seems. If you're in the world of complexity, you're going to be spinning for a long, long time. You've got to get to the world of simplicity, because true wellness is needing less, not more. Being able to be the best, most vibrant version of you with the least. With the least. That's wellness, not I have to have a certain amount of income to have access to all of the latest and greatest chemicals and compounds and devices in order to be well. That's not wellness, right? That's business, and that's not what we're talking about here. And again, it's not bad if you use those things. I can't stress that enough. Your life is your life. Whatever combination and however you want to incorporate it and experience this physical life is up to you. But in this bubble, I deal with people generally with chronic, quote unquote, disease, or lots of healing expressions that have been around for a long time. And so when you're in this world, that's why we're having this conversation. And a lot of you that are here because everything else has failed you. And so then it's left you in a state of, am I messed up? Am I wrong? Am I, is there some huge flaw in me? And that's not it. It's just that everything that we learn is profiting an industry. So you can have good people pushing things that aren't true, right? And that's the confusion of it, because it's not that the practitioners are bad, it's just what we are taught isn't true. So, as a practitioner, it even pushes you to change you. And again, we go back to effort versus struggle. Is it easy to do a medicine like this in today's society? No. Not at all. Not at all. It would actually be easier to sell supplements. It'd be easier to sell herbs. It'd be easier to just take away symptoms, right? Because you can look like an absolute genius. I felt so good when I was just the queen of taking away symptoms, until I realized I was creating more problems than I was solving. And then it was, a personal check to myself, to my morals, to my standards, to my ethics on, okay, now that you see this, how are you going to continue, right? Are you going to keep feeling pretty good about how quickly you can take away symptoms with all of your bag of tricks and have a lot of people really like you because of it? Or are you going to ask the hard questions? Are you going to challenge different parts of the person standing in front of you, make them a little bit uncomfortable, but hold up a mirror of truth that says, if I take away your symptoms, you're not going to change your life. And the life is the whole point, right? So this is where this way of living, you know, you will get there on your own. You don't even need an expert to take you there. You just have to have an ability to think on your own and to ask questions, and to not just be okay with dazzling answers, to want clarity, to demand that it makes sense before you engage with it, with your life, with your body, with your finances, with anything. And to have that level of self-reliance on yourself. Like, to build that, you have to live in a way that, you know, gains your respect. And so that's what we talk about a lot too here. Okay. All right, so I'm just watching the clock a little bit too. There were some good questions that I'm going to kind of scan back here real quick. For the one asking about the sleep question with children, we do talk about that in the sleep masterclass. Your physiology is totally different than someone that doesn't have a child. So it's actually more beautiful than you think. Yeah, and a lot of you are asking about just the noise in your head. And that's what the intention behind all of this is that too. To take away the clutter, to clean up life. Because remember the whole reason why you're doing it. You're wanting to feel good. Like, let's just super simplify everything. If you came to me, you don't come to me because you feel the best you've ever felt your whole entire life, right? I didn't have patients come to me because they had never been better, right? So if you simplify it all the way down, you come because you don't feel good. And then you don't feel good looks like a bunch of different healing expressions based off of the life that you're living, what you're consuming, how you're thinking, how you're feeling, your relationships, your environment, everything. Everything comes in and interfaces with your physiology to create the outcome, which is your health, right? Or what you call your health. And so when you're trying to change everything, remove those variables. And the reason I love the rules or the truths, or why I even did those master classes, was so that you could get rid of variables the quickest, right? Because no matter what you have to eat, no matter what you're going to be exposed to light, no matter what you have to sleep. And so when you have those huge, very practical variables consistently in place, then you remove any symptomology that has anything to do with those inputs. And so then you get either everything changes and you're done and you just continue living how you're living, which happens a lot for a lot of people. For another group of people, it takes down a lot of the symptoms and you get to see more clearly what remains because of mind, emotions, and relationships and other things like that. But until you have the practicality in the bag, until you have the understanding of how physiology works when it comes to those rules that we talk about, right? Digestion, how the body interfaces with light, and sleep, right? Just simple. Yes, the body's complex, but again, you won't need to take the sleep masterclass if you're sleeping like a baby or a rock, right? I have something cute with that, but you know who you are. And so when you have those things in the bag, you're not needing to go, like if you're sleeping well, you're not going to go study more about sleep. If you're digesting well, there's no need to study more about digestion. So that's why I love the rules. That's why I did those master classes, because then you're just done with that topic. You're not here on earth, I don't think, to forever learn about food and how to use food to manipulate the body, unless that's just your thing. If that's your thing, have at it. But for the most part, I think it would be more enjoyable to learn how to use food to make something that tastes delicious, or enjoy it, or just use it, you know, if you like doing other things, to use that time, energy, and your intellect to go into a passion instead of, you know, a frantic, fear-based desire to no because you're afraid of food, right? So when you learn learn those practical components of human physiology, it just takes away the need to go and binge learning. You really won't even care. Like, you won't care. It just will take care of itself because you don't have the symptoms that you used to have, right? Okay. Yeah. So the life is the whole point. Again, like we were saying, when you don't feel good, the whole point is so that you feel good. But why do you want to feel good? So that you can go do and experience life. And so if you give up life to heal, what does that even accomplish? That doesn't even make any sense. So really be practical in your thinking, even when it comes to that of like, if you're giving up life to heal a body, when the only reason you were needing to heal the body was to experience life, are we contributing to what is required for healing, or are we getting further away from it? You know? And you really have to look at it with a lens of truth, not just right answers. Okay. Hi. So, a lot of these more specific questions, when you have a specific symptom, even like the one asking here about hair loss and thyroid. So if I were you, what I see most often, nutrition across the board, I've yet to, and if you're a practitioner that's taken it, we've had some practitioners, even one of the nutritionists on here even said, like, you know, we never learned any of that. We learn human physiology, but we don't learn how to put it into kind of a formula, if you will, even though it's not that, on how to actually use it. So we learn human physiology, we don't actually use it to change human physiology, but then we go nitpick the food. And so the masterclass, it flips it around, saying the food is important to a certain degree, but you digesting food is far more important than, you know, any of the really technical learning that you could ever do within nutrition. So when you're having any type of presentation, if you are diagnosed with anything, I would make sure that, you know, I would start with a nutrition masterclass. And really my goal with that one was to teach you how to think while teaching you human physiology with regards to digestion, assimilation, and elimination. So pay attention to the thought process. Pay attention to the differences in how mainstream and even the natural world teaches how to view your body, how to view nutrition, how to pick your foods, versus the difference in how we present it in that masterclass. And that's how I want you viewing everything. So a lot of you have said you took the nutrition masterclass and it made you see your body differently, because then you engage with it in a more true way. And so that was the intention behind that one. That's why I led with that one, because it's so powerful when you see that your body is right. When you have that cute moment of, whoops, I shouldn't be digesting. So it's not my body is wrong because it's not digesting. It's right because it's not digesting. And I need to change if I want it to digest. That moment, when you feel that, when you understand that, and then when you know how to make changes and navigate everything downstream from that, even if it's, well, looks like I'm not eating, or looks like I'm gonna have a conversation before I get to eat, or looks like that moment is a game changer. The minute when you get it, it should give you goosebumps from the top of your head down to the bottom of your feet, because you've tasted it. You've tasted the difference between manipulation-based therapeutics and true change. And when you see the difference, when you see how to think, my body is right, how do I change? Versus my body is wrong, how do I make it change? When you feel the difference, when you live the difference, it's a game changer. And that's why I love it so much, because once you have that, it can never be taken away. So you will never get to think how you thought before that moment. You'll never think, what food do I need to go get to take away my symptoms? You can't think like that anymore. It's going to push you in this other world with us over here, where it's like, my body is right. Why is it right? And that's such a different way to live life, because then you're asking questions that actually matter, not my body is wrong, how do I make it do what I want it to do, right? And again, put these concepts on something that's more simple, easier for you to understand. That's why I love, using light. I love light in general, but just the example of having pigmentation changes in the skin, it can really start making you think differently about the body. If the body had a sunburn, it's not your body being wrong, and it's not your body needing sunscreen. It's your body saying, hey, you're in an input that you can't handle, or that you can't handle for this amount of time. And in order to not have the outcome, you've got to change, right? And then the question then becomes, okay, how do I change to where the body doesn't have to utilize a sunburn to say, hey, this is not good for you, please stop. You are creating further damage that you can't see. But I'm telling you that the alarm is what we call the sunburn. And if I didn't create the sunburn, you would continue to create the internal damage that you can't see, that the whole world is so terrified of. So you when you start really getting to listen to the body, most people don't want to hear the true language of their body, because they would rather live the convenience of, if we're going to stay in the world of the sunburn, I want to stay out at the beach on vacation for as long as I want without any preparation. So body, shut up. I'm going to cover you with sunscreen to do what I want to do, instead of being like, well, I can't. So then I might need to cover up, or I might need to do something else. So listening to the language of the body prevents all of the fear-based, I don't know what's happening underneath my skin, because it tells you, just like the body tells you, how do you know you stayed out in the sun too long? It will literally tell you. It tells you without fail. And it's not lying, and it's not wrong, it's right. But we don't see the entire body that way. We don't see all healing expressions, all symptomology in that same way. We say, okay, that's true for a sunburn, but then it's different for XYZ, right? And so you can't do that. It's all the same formula, all the same program. Okay, so the masterclass, you can find those. I'll post them in my stories. You can find them on my website, or I have a link. Even if you go to my main page on Instagram, there's a link you can click on. If you go to click on my name, and then just in the little bio at the top underneath the little picture, there's going to be a link that you can click on. Or you can just go to my website, www.gritnaturalmedicine.com. Perfect. All right. Perfect. So those of you that are, new to this thinking, and new to the rules, and new to me even, I would start, first of all, the best way to do it, because you need to make sure that, that the information coming through me is valuable to you. So I would say go consume all of my free information. There's so many hours of actual medicine on this app. They're not just random videos. The videos are the medicine. The videos are my learning. The videos are, very intentional. They weren't just done for no reason. So I would consume all of the free information on this app, very much read what I type into. Everything is done by me, and came from my experiences, my practice, my own personal healing. And then I would go, or you can watch everything on my YouTube. You can just put my name, search my name, and go listen to all of those videos on YouTube, for those of you that like to pause me. I understand. So all of those are on my YouTube channel. My subscription videos are not on YouTube, because those are more for the people on this app, that pay monthly over there. So I don't want to cross that over. I keep hitting this desk just yet, but we'll find a way to maybe find a platform where you can pause me, because I know some of you have little ones and things that you need to do. And then after you've done that, I would listen to all of my podcasts, because those are going to be more lengthy conversations, and different levels and types of questions are answered on those. And I would definitely watch all of these Q&As. And then if all of that starts clicking or starts feeling true to you, then I would go and start with a masterclass. So nutrition masterclass, hands down. Like I said, even my practitioners that I've worked with, a lot of MDs, NDs, nutritionists, health coaches, don't do nutrition that way. So they know a lot about nutrition. And again, it's not because they're wrong. We're not taught it in that way. And so, yeah, you can find all of the master classes there on my website, or again, there's a link here if you're on Instagram. Okay. All right. So I'm going to wrap up here. I'm just going to scan the questions one more time. Just working on keeping these a little bit more digestible all the time. We can go pretty long. But I love this question, and it's a very important question. The difference between try and effort. If you just got here, that's the question we covered today with regards to using your life as your medicine. And always, when you're thinking your life is your medicine, it's not just the effort that you do that makes it medicine. It's also how you react and respond. It's the totality of a day. And so it's not just what are all the things I can do in a day to be quote unquote medicine. It is all of that, and how am I experiencing the living of a day? How am I experiencing the people I'm around? What are the emotions that are created within my body? What are the thoughts in circulation in my mind? How do I feel in my life, right? That's the important part of this. That's the main point is how your life, how you experience your life. Remember, you can have two people eating the exact same thing, doing the exact same training, doing everything exactly the same, but they can experience it and interpret it and have different intentions on why they are doing it, and they will experience two totally different physiological outcomes. And that's what you have to know. That's why this medicine forces you to get to know you. Because no two people even digest a grape the same. No two people experience sunlight the same. There are patterns because we have physical bodies with these physical inputs. But you are so unique in your experiencing of something. So, we talk about this even with light. Somebody that was taught that sun is dangerous is going to experience sun exposure very differently than someone that is taught that sun is holy. And neither one of them are wrong. There's one that is going to be in more alignment with truth, but their physiology is going to accommodate based off of their truth. It's still going to experience the capital T truth, right, of what light does in a body, but they start changing that input based off of them. And so that's why the only person you need to study is you. Understand how your body works, just like we use alcohol, right? Alcohol is going to have an effect in every single human body. It's going to be different. The only one that you need to be focused on is you. And that's the same thing with every input. That's the same thing. There are these rules of life, and there is on top of it this beautiful, cosmic bundle of how you interface with those things. And we'll kind of, pick that apart when we do the mind masterclass on, okay, so how much can the mind alter an input? And I love that conversation. I love that question, but it requires so much more time than what we have here. So just as a general rule, you pay attention to you. And a whole day is the medicine. That's why there should be no, defeat, because you get every next breath. And every next breath you could smile and mean it. You could love somebody and mean it. You could do an action that doesn't look healthy, but it enlivens your entire physiology because of what it means to you. Or you could do something healthy and hate it, or do something healthy because you're afraid of something, and you could get the exact opposite physiological outcome because of that. The total truth of the bundle. So remember, the truth of your life is your medicine, not just what it looks like. Does your food matter? Yes. Does the things that you put in and on your body matter? Yes, but how much? Right? That's when the conversations start getting really cool. So how much of you today, if you're still here, how much of you can change you and what you're given today? You are sitting with the most powerful thing, and it's your body, and it's your ability to utilize your mind, your will, your emotions, to get the outcome that you desire, to feel how you want to feel. And you can even change how you feel about how you're feeling. And even that can be a positive alteration in your physiology. So there is no, if you can even hear, if you can even breathe, you can alter physiology even without anything new being introduced to you. And so that's the power that you have. So, change your day today. If you have a minute, you can change the medicine of this day. If you have 5 minutes, if you have, do something that is true for you. Do something that actually medicates in a true way. And don't just try to manipulate the body out of feeling the truth of your life. Because that's where we get into a trap, and that's where you're always going to need more tools to manipulate. You're always going to need something else. You're always going to need someone else. You're always going to have to jump from expert to expert, practitioner to practitioner, always hoping to find that thing that frees you, when the only thing that frees you is you and your life. And everything that you need to see is already here. Everything that you need to see will be at the dinner table tonight. What is floating in your head? What is floating in your heart? And then the very least of your concerns, what's sitting on your plate. And when you understand where to put priority, and then how to use your effort to benefit you, instead of to use that energy to go into a struggle, that's when you find liberation. When you know that it's going to require work, but it does not have to require struggle. That's when you start tasting a different way of living. Work, try, try in the direction of truth, not I'm going to run away as fast as I can and try to suppress and hide, and that's struggle. And so you're going to have to work hard. This medicine requires you to be true in a world that makes it really easy to cut and paste and hide and suppress and minimize and run away and distract. It's going to require the most effort, not the least. And so when you expect that, when you anticipate that, a different version of you is going to step into the room. A different version of you is like, no, I want this. And a person that actually genuinely wants something will find every reason to make it happen. If you don't want it, any reason that it can't work, you'll just drink it down. And even that understanding, that looking at yourself truthfully and being okay with it would be medicine. And just be like, I don't want to. Sometimes we have those days. Sometimes I'm just like, I don't want to. All over this day, I don't want to. Right? But then having the mentality and the grit and the determination to be like, you can have moments where you don't want to. But then you better, or if you choose to, follow those up with moments where you don't want to and you still do it. Right? Because it's not always, I feel like doing it. That's a trap too. Don't wait to feel like it. I did a video on that too. If you wait to feel like it, you're never going to do it. It's the effort, it's the action that creates the feeling. You have to be the cause to the effects that you desire. You have to take the step. You have to be the change, not put change on your plate. And when you taste the difference in that, then you cannot look at life the same. You can't look at your body the same. You can't look at the business of medicine the same, and the liberation comes as a side effect, because it's not positively think your way out of it. You have got to be truthful in your action and live your way out of this level of thinking. Live your way out of this level of being. Live your way out of this level of reacting. Live your way out of this level of expressing. And then you get to play with everything that life has to offer. Then you play with the herbs. Then you play with, utilizing your body in different ways and experiencing different things and pushing yourself in different ways. That's when that stuff is this beautiful contribution to life. But to need it and to always need to suck out, your health from something outside of yourself, again, is a very corrosive way to live, because it's just not true. Oh, my mom just showed up. Hi, Mom. All right. So we're going to wrap up here. Like I said, I'm hoping to do one more this week. I'm not promising it, but I'm hoping to get it done since we missed last week. And the goal here is just to change how we're thinking, to be in a bubble where we think differently. We look for truth. We ask questions. We want to make it make sense. And more than anything, we don't want to waste our time. And we want to see the body in a true way, so that we can ask questions that are more true. And again, when we get those answers, then we have that radical self-reliance of, okay, now it's up to me. And that's a good thing. It's a true thing. If you ever look at anyone and say it's up to you to change me, that's a very dangerous place to be. All right, so the last question that popped up really quickly, it's a big conversation. My practice started the traditional way. Well, it started like with allopathic thinking. Then it moved towards natural medicine, where I utilized herbalism and nutrition and all of that good stuff. Then I did functional neurology. Then I got super complicated with lasers and peptides, and went that whole route just to come all the way back to saying, when I did the truths of how a body responds to life and interfaces with life, we didn't even have to use supplements. And so again, you're not wrong if you utilize supplements. They're not bad. I would be very aware of what's in them. That's a different conversation too. But what I started experiencing in my practice was that we didn't need supplements for a body to heal. We needed to change a life. We needed to understand the human being, and we needed to ask hard questions and be able to receive the hard answers, and then have the capacity, the strength, and the willingness to, do the hard changes. And it was a very beautiful thing to see as a practitioner. And so no, the answer to that question is, you don't have to have supplements to heal. And I got to see in my practice that truth over and over again, even though I started out with that same level of education. Relied heavily on, supplements and herbs and manipulation-based tactics, right? And again, they're not wrong. And you as a human being, you're in this little weird bubble with me over here, where we are pure and we are giving you all of the power back. So it's not wrong if you choose to utilize any of those things, right? We can go into herbs sometime too. So you're not wrong. It's just, when you ask those questions, you go into it. If somebody doesn't have access to a specific herb, they can't heal. If somebody doesn't have access to any herbs, they can't heal. Go find those answers by yourself. And then it leads you to truth. That's what I did. All right. Thank you all for being here. Go change your day if you need to. If you have a minute, it matters. You're blinking in and out. This continuation thing is an illusion. So blink in, mean it. All right? Thank you all for being here. I'll see you soon.